Welcome to FNF Victory Road Team Analysis. In this series, I'll be analyzing different teams based on their performance in the FNF Victory Road Draft League, plus based on questions that they answer from me or a discussion if I have them on. Today, I will not be having the team that I am analyzing the coach of that team on, but it'll still be a good interview as I asked him questions before this video took place. So I'm excited to announce that today I'm going to be analyzing Elemental Dragons, the coach of Elemental Dragons being Kingfuse. So this is actually his first time participating in an FNF draft league. This has only been the second draft league we've had. The first complete draft league, as the other one was not a complete draft league. So this was really a good time for him to come in as we're starting up this draft league season series. So the first thing he did was draft this team, as you see here, with Mega Beedrill down to Emolga. And I asked him why he drafted that team, what he had in mind. And he said that he wanted to grab 6 Pokemon that he thought were good. And those 6 Pokemon were Kyurem, Kingdra, Nidoqueen, Clefable, Salazzle, and Vaporeon. And if you watch his battles, you'll notice that he has a lot of these Pokemon on his team, especially Kyurem Black, who he brought a lot. Clefable and Vaporeon are two that he brought a lot as well. And Salazzle. Kingdra and Nidoqueen, not as much. The funny thing about Clefable was that I told him, I don't think he was aware when we were drafting that you could draft out of order. So I told him, I was asking him for his draft pick, and I reminded him about his points, and he realized in that moment that he could draft out of order. And I was saying, please don't snipe me. I just want one from tier 1. And right before it was my turn, not right before, but like a little bit before, like his last pick before my turn, because I told him that he could draft out of order, which he wasn't aware of before, he went to tier 1 and he drafted Clefable. I didn't tell him that I wanted Clefable, but that was the Pokemon that I really, really wanted. And I think I asked him like 3 times in the league to trade. But he stuck with Clefable, and with good reason. He did use Clefable pretty well in some of his matches. Clefable's pretty versatile, and so he did a good job choosing Clefable for sure. The other 6 Pokemon that he chose, he said he wanted to have a U-turn spamming team. Emolga is definitely a Pokemon that can be a pivot. Beedrill can pivot as well. It was one of the main Pokemon he got. The others, some of them ended up working out really well for him, actually, especially later on down the line. So that was kind of what he was going for when he drafted his team. And when I asked him if he had a strategy that he wanted to use, he said that his main strategy he wanted to try out was Kyurem Black with Substitute, and that he didn't have any cores in mind or other strategies in mind in the beginning, and he kind of built them as he went on in the league, which we'll definitely see later that he had some different approaches than some of the more conventional approaches. So what we'll do is we'll look at his performance as a whole. So as you see here, 4-6 total win-loss record with a -9 differential, and he had 2 wins that were back-to-back for his total of the 4 wins, and then he had a block of 5 losses. Those trainers that he faced in that block were actually some of the toughest trainers. Ended up getting some of the highest rankings, all of them top 7. So that was his tough period, and then he was able to come out of that after that. So this actually goes kind of with what he asked me, what I asked him about his hardest moment in the league. He said that having that first loss that he went through was probably his hardest moment, because it hit him hard and he didn't know what to do after. He tried to go into training, but then when he lost after he trained, he got a little bit demotivated. So that block there, it could be hard, especially in your first time doing something like this. Especially if you start off strong, it could be hard to get a loss and not knowing how to pick up the pieces afterwards. And so that did affect him a little bit in the middle. But in that time, he was able to try out new things, and then eventually he was able to rebound back to get a few more wins under his belt. So we're going to go into some of these battles and look at them. The first one being the battle versus Noob Scrub, the American Braviaries. Noob Scrub being very famous for stall, and that is his preferred playstyle. So in this battle, he actually did his QRM Black substitute strategy, and it was to great success. He managed to get 4 kills with QRM Black, and that substitute was really good at blocking Will-O-Wisp, Toxic 2, I believe. And this battle is also infamous because he was able to get 6 out of 9 flinches and a critical hit. So out of 9 times he used Icicle Crash, 6 of them were flinches, only 1 miss, and then he also had a critical hit in there. That was crucial in taking down Mega Venusaur, who was one of the best Pokemon that Noob Scrub had to face his team. So there was a little luck thrown into that mix, but we welcome luck. Unless it's against us, right? But he did do pretty well in that first battle with that substitute strategy, as you could see. Vaporeon also pulled some weight being a cleric, with Heal Bell being able to heal any Toxics and Will-O-Wisp that hit him. So I think this was one of his stronger matches in the league, even though the differential, I think, is the strongest of his wins. The lowest of his wins. I think this was one of his strongest. Next, he goes up against Grand Island Jolteons, and he has another +4 here with Clefable in terms of kills, no deaths. And this time, he was actually losing this match in the beginning for a big portion. But his path to victory was really Clefable setting up with Unaware, using Calm Mind. And he was able to do that once Moltres took down Silvally. Once Moltres took down Silvally, that was the only check that was left to Clefable, and Clefable was able to set up and sweep. And it was a very impressive sweep that really changed the outcome of the game. A big turnaround, and that is actually what earned Clefable its weekly MVP status in week number 2. So Clefable the Clefable, no nickname, but with Moonblast, Protect, Calm Mind, and Wish, a Z Crystal, and Unaware. It is probably his standard set. He's used this set quite a few times, and I think this was the most effective time he used it. Next, we have the match versus Tiller, Downtown Darmanitan. This was the match that kind of demotivated him. I don't think he did that bad, though. He only had a -2 differential. Kieran Black was able to do quite a bit of damage in this one. Big offense all around with Kieran Black and Mega Beedrill. I think Zygarde being able to run rampant was really what got him. Zygarde was able to get a revenge kill and pivot out, where he couldn't really do much against it. He tried to take down Zygarde with Clefable in the beginning, but the Z Crystal actually hit Bisharp instead. So this match was probably a little bit frustrating for him, considering he had 2 wins. But I don't think it was a loss that was that bad for him, to be honest. Then we go into Quest Requested, which is Dutch Inkays, and he... this was actually a pretty drawn-out battle. I'd say 80 to 90, 95 maybe % of it was a bunch of switches, a bunch of defense, and Quest really poking holes into his team with Porygon 2. Porygon 2 was able to use its Trace to trace Vaporeon's Water Absorb to be a good wall in that aspect, and also to trace Nidoqueen and Clefable's Unaware. So I think Porygon 2 is actually one of the sleeper picks that Dutch Inkays was able to utilize in this matchup. And then Durant, once the coast was clear, was able to sweep with that +4 kill and no death after her home claws. It's really tough to take Durant down. Next, we have Detroit Dunsparces versus the Elemental Dragons, and this was a really tough battle. I think this is when Startoad was starting to really get that momentum. Galvantula is really strong in this battle. I think the main reason being because Kingfuse did not have a ground type, and that trading away Nidoqueen, which was his ground type, well, I don't think he traded away yet, but not bringing Nidoqueen was detrimental to him because Galvantula was able to use strong electric moves to hit a majority of his team, and that's really what was really tough for him to take on, plus the threat of Mega Swampert, which, as we all know, can be pretty tough. So after that, he actually traded away Nidoqueen for Magnezone, which was his ground type. Magnezone can resist electric, so it wasn't a terrible trade. He did this mostly because he wanted to give some complementary synergy with Mega Beedrill. And I think that's good because U-Turn and Volt Switch from both of them can go hand in hand. And he also traded Zoroark for Smeargle. Zoroark wasn't working out for him, and Smeargle, as you'll see later, he was able to use for the gimmicks. And I think that's also why he wanted Smeargle. I asked him why he made each exchange, and Smeargle was one of the Pokemon he mentioned. He said that he wanted to have a set with him that was really fun, and that he wanted to go a little gimmicky. And that's exactly what he did with Smeargle, actually, as you'll see later down the line. He did take Smeargle to the battle versus Star Conquerors. It didn't get too much of a chance to shine. I think in this battle, it could have gone very differently if Moltres landed its Hurricane versus Zygarde 50%. Moltres was a vital Pokemon for him, and it was the only Pokemon that could take down Ferrothorn. When Moltres went down, he had a very tough time taking down Ferrothorn, so I think that was definitely a learning experience for him, but honestly, the inaccuracy of Hurricane was really what got him in this match. And next, he went against Appleton Allegiance. This was Mega Lopunny's big match. What I noticed is that his team is overall pretty weak to fighting because of all the ice types and steel types. So Mega Lopunny had kind of a field day in this team, but in the last moments of the match, Smeargle was actually able to come out and get 3 kills with that gimmicky set. He had Destiny Bond, Endeavor, Extreme Speed, and Spore. So because of that, he was able to get a few Pokemon down and actually make a few KOs, some of the Pokemon on Colin's team. So that was like Smeargle's last stand. And then versus Bayside Divers, this is where Kingfuse actually turned it around a little bit. He went for some offense versus this team, and it paid off for him. Salazzle and Mega Beedrill just tried to plow through the team. He didn't go for defensive tactics as much. And then Articuno with bulky offense, that's when he got a little bit offensive and defensive at the same time once major threats were gone. So this was a really good win for him. And next is Rio Grande Rapidash. I forgot I wanted to say some of the thoughts for each of the battles as well. The battle versus Sir Roland was his thoughts was that Luxray was the best with a heart emoji. And this team, he was excited to try out Hail versus Rio Grande Rapidash, in which he was able to use Aurorus to set up some Hail versus Rio Grande Rapidash and go for the sweep with Sandslash Alola, and he did it very effectively, actually. He uses a lot of Ice-type Pokemon, and this time he was able to get some good things going with the Hail with them, so that was a really strong week for him, one of his more strong weeks. Yeah, and I forgot to mention the Aurorus switch, that's who he used Hail for. Then finally, Shedinja was his final trade for Aurorus, one of his final trades, and then he also traded Kyurem Black for Manaphy. He wanted Shedinja for the gimmick and also the comeback factor, And then Manaphy he traded because he wanted Kyurem Black actually to get into the playoffs. When I first saw this trade, I was like, are you abandoning the Pokemon on your banner? But he was actually trying to get Kyurem Black into the playoffs with Colin, which he managed to do. So it wasn't abandonment. It was actually, well, what's that phrase? If you love something, let it go. So that's what he decided to go for with Kyurem Black. And finally, we have the match versus Butcher Blissey's. This match, Shedinja really pulled its weight. It managed to get a max Swords Dance boost and start sweeping with Shadow Sneak, but it wasn't able to sweep the entire team, but it did do very well. Volcanion was really tough for his team. Nothing really could take it down easily. It was up to Shedinja with boosts to take it down while it was weakened. But yeah, Shedinja really pulled its weight on this one. So we're looking at now the Pokemon and how they did overall. Overall, his strongest Pokemon was Articuno with that +3 differential. Even though he didn't use it that much, when he did use it, it was used pretty nicely. Shedinja up there as well, along with Clefable and Smeargle. Sandslash, even though it has a low differential, it was very useful for him in a lot of different matchups. And I think the number doesn't reflect that, but especially in the Hail sweeping matchup and in trying to get some knockoffs on, or versus Noob Scrub with the flinches, for example, it was very useful. Kyurem Black, of course, his strongest Pokemon, but it is one of the traded away Pokemon, so it wasn't on his final team. But overall, this is what his Pokemon look like. I think next time, one of my suggestions for him would be to get a little bit more defensively synergistic, is that a word? Pokemon. He had a lot of ice types and a lot of weaknesses to fire. To fighting and fire actually too. That I think if better checked, he could have gotten a little bit more wins or better differentials. So that is a look at Elemental Dragon's battle record. And I just wanted to talk a little bit more about some of the things that he said when I asked him some questions in the in his favorite moment of the league. It was the battle versus Noob Scrub because it was very long, and and he enjoyed my pain in commentary in commenting it. Where I was like, any day now. I think it almost lasted 100 turns or something like that, where there was so much switches and Noob Scrub was going for PP stall. So my commentary for that was really funny. If you want, you could go check it out. So that was his favorite moment in the league. And then in terms of his approach to Pokemon, he says that it has changed since he started the league. At first, he would just go on Smogon and just take sets off of Smogon without thinking about it. And over time, he said he started to think more about which Pokemon go with each other and how he used them. And so I think that's good that he kept in mind some of the synergy. And I think that was evident in when he traded for Magnezone so that he could complement Mega Beedrill. He was having that team synergy in mind. Aurorus so that he could complement Sandslash, Alola, etc. So I'm really excited to see how he does in future leagues because I think that he's going to have that learning experience moving forward with him. His favorite Pokemon to use was Smeargle. And because it's so gimmicky, he really likes that surprise factor. And he says that he wants to use Smeargle again next league. So this won't be the last we see of Smeargle, I think. Hopefully he'll be able to get it so he could showcase some of the other gimmicks that he said he wanted to show but couldn't. His least favorite Pokemon to use was Kingdra. And I think that's because he used Hidden Power with Dragon Dance. Hidden Power in Gen 3 was actually physical or special, depending on what type it was, but now it's only special. So I think because he didn't have that knowledge about Hidden Power, he wasn't able to use it as effectively as he wanted to. So that was his least favorite Pokemon to use. In terms of other thoughts he had, he gave me a little congrats on the 10-0 and making it to the playoffs, so thank you for that. he is very glad that next league is Gen 7. So I want to echo that sentiment. I really like the Gen 7 meta more than the Gen 8 meta, to be honest. And he had a lot of fun, and he's excited for the next league to come. And I'm definitely excited too. I think that one of the things that I'm really a fan of Kingfuse is that he has really good sportsmanship. He is a very kind and honest person, and playing versus him, you never get the sense of hostility. You always get a sense of someone who's having fun and willing to learn, and I think that will carry forward into other leagues, just like it showcased in this league. So I definitely want to take this opportunity to thank Elemental Dragons, Kingfuse, for participating in this league. It was great to have you, and I look forward to when you join us for next league. So that was a team analysis for Elemental Dragons. If you would like to see some other team analysis, I will be bringing them as the days go on. And right now we are currently in the playoffs. I am hoping to finish most of the team analysis before the playoffs are done. So tune in next time, and I'll catch you then with other team analysis.